The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence, Scovel, Schinn. If you are interested in understanding the quote-unquote secrets to life, if you are curious about metaphysics or the concept of life as a game, because it seems hackable, then this is the book for you. Knowledge of spiritual law assists with successes. What are spiritual laws? I wonder. Jesus refers to it as giving and receiving. As a child brought up in a household with deacons as parents, I didn't quite understand this Bible verse fully. I read it as required reading rather than trying to understand at the time. Luke 6:38, quote, "Give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye mete withal, it shall be measured to you again." Closed quote. Training your imagination to image only good helps with playing the game successfully. Successful training starts with knowing the workings of your mind, of the mind. I had not considered imagination as a thing, let alone the idea and or need to train your imagination. There is always plenty on man's pathway, but can only be brought into existence by desire, faith, or the spoken word. Matthew 7, verse 7, quote, "Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door shall be opened. Seek and you shall find." That is paraphrased. This lens on faith is new because in my experience, faith had a lot to do with declaring your belief in God, and especially as a good follower, and more keeping in mind the gaze of the others within the community or within the church or within what is considered to be right. It was very much tied to being good, being tested as good, whereas in this context of the book, faith is tied to knowing that abundance is the truth. It also is reflected as a tool in playing the game of life in relation to the knowledge, the deep inner knowing that we are abundant, we are love, and we are loved. Now moving on to the object of the game of life is to see clearly one's good and to obliterate all mental pictures of evil. This must be done by impressing the subconscious mind with a realization of good. Again here, the concept of good in quotation marks is linked to abundance, whereas in childhood, the concept of good, especially like the ages between childhood and teenagehood, well, let me refer to this. So previously, the concept of good seemed burdensome and unattainable, whereas this book is reflecting good as something to be realized in the mind. Now, man can change his conditions by changing his words. And she makes reference to the Bible verse, Proverbs 18, verse 21, which notes that death and life are in the power of the tongue. The law of prosperity. God is man's supply, and man can release through his spoken word all that belongs to him by divine right. He must, however, have perfect faith in his spoken word. I haven't thought about it this way before. That's God is my supply. Knowing this makes a difference, because it really is not within my hands. It cannot possibly be. Asking from the source of infinite supply is the ultimate confidence boost and makes faith so easy. I love it. What I mean by it, that which is outside of me is not within my hands. And also the process of the how of my desires, that is not within my hands. And God as the supply is really makes it easier, because I can simply ask. Another new learning is that the spoken word is powerful because it can release all those good things for good that belongs to me by divine right. This is new learning for me. Man must prepare for the thing he has asked for when there isn't the slightest sign of it in sight. One who knows spiritual law is undisturbed by appearances. As I see it, preparation for what you have asked for is part and parcel of the conviction that God is. Before being introduced to this concept, I had not considered preparing for what it is that I've asked for. Never quite coached a beautiful ask in an intentional and a conscious way. So I'm excited by this possibility that how do I prepare for what it is that I've asked for? Okay, so preparation for what I've asked for is, say if I wish to go on an artist date, if I wish to develop my voice as an artist, for example, I consume art. I do that which excites me. And so if I ask for, can I please have, a sum of money? I need a sum of money to live my best life. What to do is, in that measure, what's the measure that I give? In this instance, the measure is, I will go and book a movie and go on the big screen, get myself everything I want, and just have a blast. That is preparing for what I have asked for. Jesus says, if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. And here I've noted that support is a great catalyst for bringing into existence what it is that you desire. I've known this somewhere deep down, likely because of the opposite that has been present. Yes, and the fact that there's the opposite present made it very clear that I do desire support. And so in this case, I would think about who would be excited to go and watch a movie with me on the big screen, and we just have a beautiful day. The power of the word. Owing to the vibratory power of words, whatever man voices, he begins to attract. Who's the matter with you? Instead of what's the matter with you, ask who is the matter with you instead of what's the matter with you. What is meant by this? Any inharmony on the external indicates there is mental inharmony. Man's only enemies are within himself. Christ's message is peace on earth, goodwill towards man. The enlightened man therefore endeavors to perfect himself upon his neighbor. His work is with himself, to send out goodwill and blessings to every man. If man blesses a man, he has no power to harm him. Note, this is an important learning, and I like the perspective of as within, so without. From experience, I know the heavy burden of bitter feelings towards someone outside of myself, and yet the wisdom in it is that it is a signal from within that love and goodwill is needed for myself, because it is reflected outward in a way that is disturbing. And counseling my inner child in this way is a beautiful and practical way in which I add peace to the world, in which I fulfill the intention of a peaceful and enlightened planet. Love and goodwill destroy the enemies within one's self. Therefore, one has no enemies on the external. Thus is the imperfect take. I am reflecting on what I'm learning about the game of life and how to play it. Now we've gone through the game itself, and the main messages in that is, as you give, that is how you shall receive. Then we move into the law of prosperity. And the law of prosperity is, before we get into the law of prosperity, the game of life is bound to be successful. You're bound to attain success in the game of life when you know spiritual laws. Now, the law of prosperity is knowing that God is my supply. And knowing that God is my supply, I am confident, I have faith that whatever I ask and is within my divine right, I will receive. Another additional way to obtaining that which you ask is the spoken word and desire. Okay, so the plenty on man's pathway can only be brought into existence by desire, faith, or the spoken word. Now on to the law of prosperity. Here we are learning that preparing for what you ask for is tied to faith. Because if you ask, remember, you will receive as much as you give. So if you ask, you have so much faith that you know God is my supply, that I will prepare for what I've asked for. That's another important aspect. And then support is great for bringing it into existence even more potently. And then finally, reflecting on the power of the word. Okay, so the important takeaway here is, okay, what I really love about this is that the enlightened man endeavors to perfect himself upon his neighbor. His work is with himself to send out goodwill and blessings to every man. If man blesses a man, he has no power to harm him. And thus, she also touches on inharmony on the external, being an indication of inharmony on the internal. And then further specifies that man's enemy are only within himself. I think this is a quite significant point, because there are instances where someone, or perhaps what is reflected outside of ourselves, is someone being rude, or someone maybe breaking your heart, or not acting in a way that you expect them to act. However, that is very much tied to duality, the third dimensional experience. Now, in the fourth and fifth dimensional experience, there is no duality. You simply accept what is, and in terms of the game of life and how to play it, speak words of goodwill and give love to yourself. Counsel yourself, perfect yourself on your neighbor. It's a game. Like when someone is being salty, realize that that person is being salty. Let me go to my inner child and speak to her and let her know that she is precious, they are precious, and how anyone else behaves outside of themselves has everything to do with them, and that you are loved unconditionally. The law of non-resistance. First, resist not evil. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. In reality, there is no evil, therefore nothing to resist. Evil has come of man's vain imagination, or a belief in two powers, good and evil. What I understand about evil before reading this information is as an intentional act. And because of this understanding, it can be linked with fear and the illusion of control. However, this teaching shares that evil is an illusion. It's an imagined thing and is easily overcome by good. There is only one power, and that is the power of good. Evil is not a power. Evil is an illusion. If evil is an illusion, if evil does not exist, then there is nothing to resist. The belief that there are two powers is not the path of least resistance. The belief that there is one power and that is of good is the path of joy, the path of hope, the path of love. Now for the unedited version on my thoughts, or the unread. Okay, so evil is not something to be feared, because evil is an illusion. It's an imagination of the vain mind. And there is only one power, and that is the power of good. So there is nothing to resist. Overcome evil with good, because good is the only power. Man's soul is his subconscious mind, and whatever he feels deeply, good or bad, is outpictured by that faithful servant. I did not understand the power of feeling before being introduced to this concept, as it is so often talked about in those manifestation techniques and theory videos. And yet still I didn't quite get it. Now I understand the link between feeling and the functioning of the subconscious mind. Okay, so what I liked about this learning is that from books that I've listened to before and on videos that talk about manifestation, they often emphasize the feeling, embodying the feeling that attracts what you desire in your direction. I was talking about how I didn't quite get that information, although I heard it, that, it's about the feeling, embodying the feeling. This makes it clearer to me how that works in terms of bringing, because manifestation is bringing into reality what it is that you desire. And so when you feel it, it is pictured in the subconscious mind. Now moving on. If you do not run your subconscious mind yourself, someone else will run it for you. Prior to reading this, I have not considered the quote-unquote responsibility of running your subconscious mind. I am now taking my power back literally in this way, by choosing to run my subconscious mind. And this is so beautiful. I'm co-creating with the divine. Florence further goes into the law of non-resistance by talking about the man who is centered and established in right thinking, the man who sends out only goodwill to his fellow man, and who is without fear, cannot be touched or influenced by the negative thoughts of others. Okay, talk about a superpower. I hadn't considered fellow man in this context before. It was much more, and not inherently so, although a choice every time and disturbed by societal norms and standards, blah blah blah. At times it was mired in the thought of separation. And as Bashar has shared that we all are one and the all is one, what I mean by a superpower is that I consider it a superpower not being influenced and or touched by the negativity of others. And of course, you can't be touched by the negativity of others, especially if you understand that I am a multi-dimensional being. I send love and goodwill to my fellow man forever and ever. We are one, unity, love. From the top of my dome, I love the superpower of not being touched by the negative thoughts of others. I send my fellow man goodwill and love. Good. Next, I also noted that being without fear is a necessary ingredient here. Fear is an illusion. Remember, my love. Resistance is hell because it places man in a state of torment. Resisting the situation means seeing two powers instead of one. As there is only one power, God, this man is here for my good and my prosperity. Make the statement, every man is a golden link in the chain of my good. For all men are God in manifestation, awaiting the opportunity given by man himself to serve the divine plan of his life. Now, as it pertains to the law of non-resistance, and resistance is hell because it places man in a state of torment. Living in the past is a failure method and a violation of spiritual law. Jesus Christ said, "Behold, now is the accepted time. Now is the day of salvation." Live fully in the now. The day of salvation is now. This is so profound. I first learned of the concept of the moment of now as a child. My cousin borrowed me the book called The Present. I didn't truly get it at the time when I first read it. However, the next significant moment when I grasped the concept of now is when I did the inner engineering course by Sadhguru. And at this present moment is the time that I fully get it. This now moment. Then in terms of hell, the concept of hell, I have grown to understand it as a state of being. As a child, the concept of hell was taught as a consequence for incongruent behavior that's more often than not tied to the ill handling of the functioning of the subconscious mind by the beings, by the adults around. I am now learning that it is actually a choice. Regardless, the concept of hell was linked to consequence of behavior, and this is simply not resonant with me ever since I've grown to understand it differently. And here's the light bulb moment. That resistance is hell, because it does create an atmosphere of torment, leading to you contorting yourself in ways that are laughable and a waste of energy. Another added elaboration on the law of non-resistance is The great law of transmutation is founded on non-resistance. Bless your enemy and you rob him of his ammunition. His arrows will be transmuted into blessings. This is true of nations and of individuals. This reminds me of alchemy. I experienced this at my previous place of employment, wherein I transmuted frustration into fuel for perfecting myself and loving myself and showing up for myself. And I am proud of that. I am proud. Now, one more aspect on the law of non-resistance is that one's ships come in over a calm sea. Agree with thine adversary quickly. Have the attitude that none of these things move me. When there is in him no emotional response to an inharmonious situation, it fades away forever from his pathway. None of these things move me is an affirmation that helps when faced with contrast in your day. Picturing ships coming in over a calm sea, it makes me think about being ready for battle. Why am I nervous about ships coming in? This is a great understanding of inharmonious situations. This is like the opposite side of the coin to the concept of wishing love and goodwill on your fellow man. Okay, let me think about that. And the affirmation, none of these things move me. I think it's also a sign of a lack of faith. If the seas, which is tied to your emotional being, because emotions are water, as per my understanding, emotions are quite tied to water. So if something in an inharmonious situation occurs, then and the sea becomes one of torment, then the ships are not going to come in. This is a pivotal part of how it makes it clearer for me, this idea of non-resistance and resistance. Now, also in support of the law of non-resistance is the challenge to make an affirmation immediately upon waking. For example, thy will be done this day. Today is a day of completion. I give thanks for this perfect day. Miracle shall follow. There's a chapter in the book coming up called Denials and Affirmations, and no, I think it is before that. There is a section in the book that is upcoming where Florence talks about affirmations, how to actually word your affirmations, the importance of that, and for it to be in sync with who you are. If it resonates with you, it's even more potent. So what makes sense for you when you first wake up? Good morning. It is a good morning. Good morning. It is a good morning. I'm gonna dig into that. In fact, she elaborates in this specific chapter. Look with wonder at that which is before. One should never use an affirmation unless it absolutely satisfying and convincing to his own consciousness. For example, I have a wonderful work in a wonderful way. I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. Every affirmation must be carefully worded and completely cover the ground. I have read this book before and actually said these affirmations immediately upon waking up. However, I will love to pay more attention to crafting the affirmations I use. That it is intentional and that it is resonant with my own subconscious, with my own consciousness. Be delicate about the words and ensure completion. Be thorough about it. Many times I simply want to enjoy the moment. I love the gratitude way of being. I think it didn't stick because of the choice of language in terms of how it is that I really talk. The law of karma and the law of forgiveness. Man receives only that which he gives. This is a new insight. I had considered it more of a physical giving and receiving. However, this is tied to everything that you give outside of yourself. The way that you treat is a form of giving. The game of life is a game of boomerangs. Whatever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. The more man knows, the more he is responsible for. And a person with a knowledge of spiritual law, which he does not practice, suffers greatly in consequence. The fear of the Lord, or law, is the beginning of wisdom. I wonder about this, the use of fear. It makes sense to me that fear is an illusion. So I don't quite get it fully what is meant by this. I like the idea of being considerate of how it is that you give in this world, though. Fear is an illusion. I do get the intention behind this, though, but I'd like to dive into it at a later stage. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord, or law. It is the law that takes vengeance, not God. God sees man perfect, created in his own image or imagination, and given power and dominion. Freedom from all unhappy conditions comes through knowledge of spiritual law. Man should always demand only that which is his by divine right. Desire is a tremendous force and must be directed in the right channels, or chaos ensues. Casting the burden, impressing the subconscious. Impressing the subconscious mind with good as simply intellectual knowledge of the truth will not bring results. The author's way to make it easy is to cast your burdens. For example, a woman in urgent need of money made the statement, I cast this burden of lack on the Christ within, and I go free to have plenty. Another affirmation that can be used is, I cast this burden on the Christ within, and I go free. Darkness before the dawn. It means that out of the subconscious are rising the doubts and fears of the ages. These old derelicts of the subconscious rise to the surface to be put out. How long must one remain in the dark? Until one can see in the dark. Casting burdens enables one to see in the dark. Active faith is always essential. Example, when Jesus commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground before he gave thanks for the loaves and the fishes. My thoughts, notes regarding active faith. Thus, has presented itself as a challenge to me, and in the 5D, keeping in mind the subconscious mind and its functioning, I fully understand that God is my supply, that I am abundant, that I am free, that I am sovereign. This is the image I am imprinting in my subconscious mind in this now moment. I cast the burden of fear onto the Christ within, and I go free. Furthermore, on impressing the subconscious mind with good, is that man should watch himself hourly to detect if his motive for action is fear or faith. There is no peace and happiness for man until he has erased all fear from the subconscious. Notes. In my opinion, I disagree with the sentiment that man should watch himself hourly. That is not aligned with the idea of active faith. Neither is it aligned with the law of non-resistance. I also don't resonate with the word should. I like the idea, though, of paying attention to the motive for action. That is it faith or fear? Further notes on casting the burden that I've made is that this is an important learning for me. It's comforting to know that God is my supply and I can cast my burdens onto God as well. Active faith is the personification of faith. What is my motive for action? Faith or fear? A friend and or neighbor faints and she responds, cast your burden onto the Christ within and go free. That's what she wants to say, and she's faced with a choice. Does she take action based on fear or faith? She decides to do a tiny experiment. Make the choice of faith. Faith being the substance of things hoped for. Love. A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another. Love is a cosmic phenomenon and opens to man the fourth dimensional world, the world of the wondrous. Love is a cosmic phenomenon. Love is an elixir. Real love is selfless and free from fear. It pours itself out upon the object of its affection without demanding any return. Love is God in manifestation and the strongest magnetic force in the universe. Pure, unselfish love draws to itself its own. It does not need to seek or demand. Note: I like the idea of love as God in manifestation, as well as love being the strongest magnetic force in the universe. That resonates. Jealousy is the worst enemy of love, for the imagination runs riot, seeing the loved one attracted to another, and invariably these fears objectify if they are not neutralized. How to neutralize fears? Here's a story of a woman and her feelings towards her ex. The advice guidance: perfect yourself on this man. Give him a perfect unselfish love, demanding. She replied, "No, I won't bless him unless I know where he is." Well, I said, that is not real love. When you send out real love will return to you, either from this man or his equivalent. For if this man is not the divine selection, you will not want him. As you are one with God, you are one with the love which belongs to you by divine right. Several months passed and matters remained about the same, but she was working conscientiously with herself. I said, when you are no longer disturbed by his cruelty, he will cease to be cruel, as you are attracting it through your own emotions. Then I told her of a brotherhood in India who never said good morning to each other. They used these words: I salute the divinity in you. They saluted the divinity in every man and in the wild animals in the jungle, and they were never harmed, for they see only God in every living thing. I said, salute the divinity in this man, and say, I see you, divine self only. I see you as God sees you, perfect, made in his image and likeness. She found she was becoming more poised and gradually losing her resentment. He was a captain and she always called him the Cap. One day she said suddenly, God bless the Cap, wherever he is. I replied, now that is real love. And when you have become a complete circle and are no longer disturbed by the situation, you will have his love or attract its equivalent. I was moving at this time and did not have a telephone, so was out of touch with her for a few weeks, when one morning I received a letter saying, we are married. At the earliest opportunity I paid her a call. My first words were, "What happened?" "Oh," she exclaimed, "a miracle. One day I woke up and all suffering had ceased. I saw him that evening and he asked me to marry him. We were married in about a week, and I have never seen a more devoted man." The woman's lover was teaching her selfless love, which every man sooner or later must learn. Note: this is a beautiful form of alchemy, transmuting the pain of heartbreak and jealousy from heavy and taxing to light and easy and joyful. There are also clues here repeated on what it is to give perfect unselfish love. Unselfish is also tied to the impersonal, the unity consciousness. Compassion, gratitude for the lessons, the signals that point to desire and bliss that is infinite and ever present. Demanding nothing in return, do not criticize or condemn, reminds me of the non dual nature of the fifth dimensional experience. Another aspect of perfect love is the guidance to bless him wherever he is. I've not really considered the concept of love in this way, let alone a perfect love. There is an old saying, "No man is your enemy. No man is your friend. Every man is your teacher." So one should become impersonal and learn that each man has to teach him, and soon he would learn his lessons and be free. Note: every man is a teacher. I like the part when you learn all your lessons and be free. I wonder about the no man as your enemy and or no man as your friend part. This is a healthy way to perceive others. I wonder what it means in terms of authenticity. I like how it facilitates the easy way of no judgment. This is also in answer to the question how to neutralize fears. If no man is your friend, then the fear of betrayal is neutralized. If no man is your enemy, then the fear of destruction is neutralized. The fear of war is neutralized. The fear of oppression is neutralized. The fear of harm too. The author furthermore says that man is selfish, tyrannical, or fearful in his affectations, thereby losing the thing he loves. Note how to lose the thing you love. Think only of yourself in pursuit of love. Just that fact that in pursuit is included is a reflection of how the meaning of what a perfect love is misunderstood. Selfish in affectation means that the concept of separation is evident. Be tyrannical in your affectations is another surefire way to lose the thing you love. Losing is unintentional. What is tyranny? The illusion of control. Again, that A of separation. The illusion of separation. A third way to lose the thing you love, be fearful in your affectations. Fear is an illusion. Perfect love casteth out all fear. There is only one power, and that is the power of good. This is what resonates with me fully. Fear is illusory, and as indicated with jealousy, letting the imagination run wild, it's linked to separation, desperation, truly the opposite of love. More on love. Suffering is not necessary for man's development. It is the result of violation of spiritual law. But few people seem able to rouse themselves from their soul sleep without it. Man often suffers loss through lack of appreciation. Note, this is my first introduction to the concept of that suffering results from a violation of spiritual law. I have considered suffering as punishment and or unnecessary, and points to the desire to be normal. I also like the imagery of soul sleep. More on love. No man is a success in business unless he loves his work. The picture the artist paints for love of his art is his greatest work. No man can attract money if he despises it. Many people are kept in poverty by saying, money means nothing to me, and I have a contempt for people who have it. This is the reason so many artists are poor. Their contempt for money separates them from it. This attitude of mind, of course, separates man from his supply. He must be in harmony with the thing in order to attract it. Furthermore, money is God in manifestation, as freedom from want and limitation, but it must be always kept in circulation and put to right uses. Hoarding and saving react with given vengeance. Elaborate. Love of money is the root of all evil. Money in itself is good and beneficent, but used for destructive purposes, hoarded and saved, or considered more important than love, brings disease and disaster, and the loss of money itself. Note. Here I have learned the notion that you must be in harmony with the thing in order to attract it, and the detrimental effects of saving, hoarding, and placing it on a pedestal is: money is my ally, my support. I appreciate it so much. I am grateful for you, money. I appreciate you. Thank you for teaching it to me. This is also linked to the need to not suffer in order to develop. I am thinking about the concept of challenge and a mistaken view that challenge means suffering. Also, I had not considered money as God in manifestation, as she explains that it's freedom from want and limitation. Sounds like God to me. Furthermore, she points out, follow the path of love and all things are added, for God is love and God is supply. Follow the path of selfishness and greed and the supply vanishes, or man is separated from it. Note. Yeah, it resonates with me the idea that following the path of love is a space of being where all things are added. Loving what you do and linked to the freedom from want and limitation. This does not mean that man should not have houses and lots, stocks and bonds, for the bonds of the righteous man shall be full. It means man should not hoard even the principal if an occasion arises when money is necessary. In letting it go fearlessly and cheerfully, he opens the way for more to come in, for God is man's unfailing and inexhaustible supply. This is the spiritual attitude towards money, and the great bank of the universal never fails. Giving cheerfully is my innate way of being. And here I am learning of its connection to God as man's unfailing and inexhaustible supply. Ooh, yes. More on love. All disease, all unhappiness come from the violation of the law of love. Man's boomerangs of hate, resentment, and criticism come back laden with sickness and sorrow. Love seems almost a lost art, but the man with the knowledge of spiritual law knows it must be regained. For without it, he has become as sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. So man, in ignorance of the law, brings about his own destruction. For example, I had a student who came to me month after month to clean her consciousness of resentment. After a while, they arrived at the point where she resented only one woman, but that one woman kept her busy. Little by little, she became poised and harmonious, and one day all resentment was wiped out. She came in radiant and exclaimed, "You can't understand how I feel." The woman said something to me, and instead of being furious, I was loving and kind, and she apologized and was perfectly lovely to me. No one can understand the marvelous lightness I feel within. Note: I love the subtle power of detachment and that of being loving and kind. Striving for this kind of action is so worthwhile, especially if I take the opportunity to go within and address it with the one that matters. The one inside of me and my beautiful and precious inner child. More on love. Love and goodwill are invaluable in business. Note: I agree. Caring truly is great for business because it is entwined with the concept of giving value. More on love. Perfect love casteth out fear. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. Note: yeah, agreed. I am thinking about the fear as an illusion and evil as an illusion, and the power of imprinting the image of good on your subconscious mind is really worthwhile for the good of all. on intuition or guidance. There is nothing too great of accomplishment for the man who knows the power of his word and who follows his intuitive leads. By his word, he starts in action unseen forces and can rebuild his body or refold his affairs. It is, therefore, of the utmost importance to choose the right words, and the student carefully selects the affirmation he wishes to catapult into the invisible. Now, linking back to the idea that there is nothing too great of accomplishment for the man who knows the power of his word, he knows that God is his supply, that there is a supply for every demand, and that his spoken word releases this supply. In an example, a woman came to me, the author, asking me to speak the word for a position. So I demanded, Infinite Spirit, open the way for this woman's right position. Never ask for just a position. Ask for the right position, the place already planned in divine mind, as it is the only one that will give satisfaction. I love the idea of the spoken word as a tool to release the unlimited supply from the divine. That is a squeal of excitement that is being imprinted on my subconscious mind right here, right now. A third elaboration of the idea that there is nothing too great of accomplishment for the man who knows the power of his word and who follows his intuitive leads. Ask and ye shall receive. Man must make the first move. Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. The author shares her experience in relation to the recommendation to ask and ye shall receive. I have often been asked just how much to make. Okay. I've often been asked just how to make a demonstration. I reply, speak the word and then do not do anything until you get a definite lead. No, let me restart. Okay. I've often been asked just how to make a demonstration. I reply, speak the word and then do not do anything until you get a definite lead. Demand the lead, saying, Infinite Spirit, reveal to me the way. Let me know if there's anything for me to do. The answer will come through intuition or hunch, a chance remark from someone, or a passage in a book, etc., etc. In a further example, and as a challenge to myself and to you, if you are paying attention, is to try a tiny experiment based on this example. The author goes on to explain. For example, a woman desired a large sum of money. She spoke the words, "Infinite Spirit, open the way for my immediate supply. Let all that is mine by divine right now reach me in great avalanches of abundance." Then she added, "Give me a definite lead. Let me know if there is anything for me to do." The thought came quickly. Give a certain friend who had helped her spiritually $100. She told her friend, who said, "Wait and get another lead before giving it." So she waited, and that day met a woman who said to her, "I gave someone $1 today, and it was just as much for me as it would be for you to give someone 100. This was indeed an unmistakable lead. So she knew she was right in giving the $100. It was a gift which proved a great investment. For shortly after that, a large sum of money came to her in a remarkable way. Now let's get to the challenge. A tiny experiment is to speak the words in relation to an ask and to ensure that you are intentional about your spoken words and to make sure that it is aligned with your consciousness, your way of speaking, not a copy paste. A good time frame, I would say, is 3 days. So let's do it for 3 days. And I'm excited. Starting today. Perhaps I'll do a short about it. Then we can connect there. Now, again, in support of the thought, the recommendation, the guidance of ask and ye shall receive, giving opens the way for receiving. In order to create activity in finances, one should give. Tithing or giving 1/10 of one's income is an old Jewish custom and is sure to bring increase. Also, take into consideration that God loveth a cheerful giver. Bills should be paid cheerfully. All money should be sent forth fearlessly and with a blessing. This attitude of mind makes man master of money. It is his to obey, and his spoken word then opens vast resource. It is his to obey, and his spoken word then opens vast reservoirs of wealth. Man himself limits his supply by his limited vision. Sometimes the student has a great realization of wealth, but is afraid to act. The vision and action must go hand in hand, as is the case of the man who bought the fur-lined coat. The author shared an example in an earlier story of acting in faith. This gentleman was out with his wife, and he laid his eyes on this beautiful fur-lined coat. His finances were not so free. I believe he was some sort of salesperson, and however, he was so drawn to this fur-lined coat. It was quite expensive. However, he made the decision to buy the coat in faith that it would attract more. Yes, and so the story, what happens is that because he wears, I think he went for an interview or he spoke to some client, and he attracted more business because of how reputable he looked in that more expensive fur coat. So he attracted a lot more money. Yes. Now back to intuition or guidance. Intuition is a spiritual faculty and does not explain, but simply points the way. Indecision is a stumbling block in many a pathway. In order to overcome it, make the statement repeatedly: I am always under direct inspiration. I make right decisions quickly. These words impress the subconscious, and soon one finds himself awake and alert, making his right moves without hesitation. I'm going to do another tiny experiment from this book because, when I wake up in the morning, I haven't discovered a good affirmation as yet when I wake up. There's often me searching for what could I say, and so I'm gonna try this for 6 days. The first thing I wake up in the morning, I am always under direct inspiration. I make right decisions quickly. So excited. Will you join me? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Now back to intuition or guidance. I have found it destructive to look to the psychic plane for guidance, as it is the plane of many minds and not the one mind. As man opens his mind to subjectivity, he becomes a target for destructive forces. The psychic plane is the result of man's mortal thought and is on the plane of opposites. He may receive either good or bad messages. The science and numbers and the reading of horoscopes keep man down on the mental or mortal plane, for they deal only with the karmic path. It takes a very strong mind to neutralize a prophecy of evil. The student should declare, every false prophecy shall come to naught. Every plan my Father in heaven has not planned shall be dissolved and dissipated. The divine idea now comes to pass. However, if any good message has ever been given one of coming happiness or wealth, harbor and expect it, and it will manifest. Note, yeah, this, as I understand it, is the equivalent of seeking answers outside of yourself. Seeking answers outside of yourself is like tapping into many minds, because And the reason why it's probably so enticing is that it works for them. Or, yeah, it works for them based on their experience, based on their talents, based on their gifts, based on their beliefs. And so it's not a good idea to look outside of oneself for guidance, but rather to look within. And I'm grateful that I get to understand this. Now, more on intuition or guidance. Wisdom's ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. Salute the divinity in every man, call on the law of forgiveness. Note here, I love this clarity and light shed on wisdom, that wisdom is, the ways of wisdom are pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. And this in connection with the topic of intuition or guidance is so pivotal to know, especially in relation to the beautiful truth of divinity in every man and the law of forgiveness. Go beyond forgiveness into gratitude. Be grateful for every man. Gratitude for every man goes beyond the law of forgiveness, because perhaps the contrast that is appearing in your day is simply there to be observed and thanked for its presence to teach you about yourself. This is my new understanding on wisdom and pleasantness and peace. It makes sense that once you harbor gratitude, that it leads to pleasantness and it is peaceful. So excited about that. Now, more on intuition or guidance. When one has made his demands upon the universal, he must be ready for surprises. Everything may seem to be going wrong, when in reality it is going right. Man is here to prove God and to bear witness to the truth, and he can only prove God by bringing plenty out of lack and justice out of injustice. Prove me now herewith, said the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough. Ooh, note. Wow, I love that. The concept of this book is that the game of life and how to play it. And knowing that life is not a battle. Life is a game. a game of giving and receiving. And in order to play the game well is to understand spiritual laws. Now we've already covered that, and God is understanding that God is man's supply. It is, according to this author, she notes that one must be ready for surprises, and that even when things may seem to be going wrong, in reality they're going right. I think that's important to note. I also wonder how that fits in with the golden age. Do things go wrong in the golden age? Or is the word wrong perhaps inappropriate? I have to think more about that. Okay, with this thought of man is here to prove God and to bear witness to the truth, I like that idea, especially taking into consideration man, right? So man here on earth. So apparently man entered this earth forgetting where he or she or they are from. And so imagine that man proving throughout his lifetime, because of how separate it appears to be from that love of God, walking into that love or choosing that love is even more proof, or it actually solidifies the love of God. I like that. I like that a lot. Chapter on perfect self-expression or the divine design. There is a place which he is to fill and no one else can fill, something which he is to do, which no one else can do. It is his destiny. This achievement is held a perfect idea in divine mind, awaiting man's recognition, as the imaging faculty is the creative faculty. It is necessary for man to see the idea before it can manifest. Need to read that again. Okay. This achievement is held a perfect idea in divine mind, awaiting man's recognition. As the imaging faculty is the creative faculty, it is necessary for man to see the idea before it can manifest. One should not visualize or force a mental picture. When he demands the divine design to come into his conscious mind, he will receive flashes of inspiration and begin to see himself making some great accomplishment. This is the picture or idea he must hold without wavering. So now this is pertaining to the divine design and perfect self-expression. There's a reason why you need to believe it before you see it, because you are making use of the subconscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind is the creative faculty. If you are one of those people that struggle or find it challenging to imagine a picture of what you are trying to manifest, then don't resist that. Respect the law of non-resistance, or take into consideration the law of non-resistance. So, taking into consideration that God is man's supply and the game of life, as Yeshua describes it, giving and receiving. It's about giving and receiving. Yes. Giving and receiving. Receiving implies that there is an ask involved, right? So this is where the demand, say the demand for perfect self-expression or awareness of your divine design. Now, you forcing it, it's not. And here I'm speaking to myself. Now, how to imprint on your subconscious mind, or the best way to function, or the creative faculty, is to act in the direction of your inspiration. I'm only getting that now. Okay, so now that is the picture or the idea that he must hold without wavering. This is the recommendation from the author. And I've also noted, I'll see it when I believe it. I'll believe it when I feel it. I'll feel it when it inspires me. I hold on to this without wavering. This is the power I am realizing. On the 1/11/2025. Now, further to the idea of destiny is that man's highest demand is for the divine design of his life. Note, it is a high demand that the divine design of your life. I can also look at this from the perspective of being a co-creator with the divine. A co-creator with the subconscious mind and the superconscious mind. So who is this co-creator? Is it me? Is it my soul? Is it my conscious mind? Now back to perfect self-expression or the divine design. His demand should be: infinite spirit, open the way for the divine design of my life to manifest. Let the genius within me now be released. Let me see clearly the perfect plan. The perfect plan includes health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. More on perfect self expression. Perfect self expression will never be labor, but of such absorbing interest that it will seem almost like play. The student knows also, as man comes into the world financed by God, the supply needed for his perfect self expression will be at hand. Spoken word and faith releases quickly the necessary funds. Demand definite leads, and the way will be made easy and successful. Herein, it's talking about how a man comes into the world financed by God. That's powerful. That's so beautiful. Like, imagine God as your financier. Let's talk about the ultimate wealth. Endless. Okay. And in more than one way. So multi-dimensional. Spoken word and faith releases the funds from the supply that God has. The supply necessary for your perfect self-expression is at hand. Thus, depending on your spoken word as well as on your faith, know that the spoken word and faith releases quickly the necessary funds. Another aspect to this is to demand definite leads. What is my perfect self-expression? Mine is creator, lover, jester. Okay, not always. I've not quite often in the I've grown from this misunderstanding or the almost like I couldn't get it, like how, because it does seem easy. People, those who are in that wealth, those are within their power. They are in play. They are in play. And I'm really grateful that I am now understanding the easing into yourself. Easing into yourself. It is easy, it is playful. And I'm really grateful that I get to understand. Now back to perfect self-expression or the divine design. The student must form the habit of practicing the presence of God every minute. In all thy ways, acknowledge Him. Nothing is too small or too great. My way, not your way, is the command of infinite intelligence. Also linked to the law of non-resistance. Note, it's funny that she mentions the law of non-resistance because there is some resistance to the word must. Must. must feels quite musty. It feels musty. However, what I am okay, let me look at it in relation to perfect self-expression or the divine design. Practicing the presence of God. Okay, so the divine design implies that it's been planned already by the divine. And so that implies that the divine is intertwined into that plan. So, practicing the presence of God is tapping into the present through your loved experience. And doing it every minute, is a pathway towards fulfilling the divine design. And I also see it as the presence of God is, it's that inspiration that gets imprinted on your subconscious mind. Like, say, when you are watching the ocean, or you are being in nature, it's inspiring you. For me personally, I emerge from nature feeling absolutely free. Yes. So I'll choose the law of non-resistance for that. Further noted, there is some resistance here for me regarding practicing the presence of God. It reminds me so much of the rigidity of church. Think about it right now. What does the presence of God mean to you? Is it not like the concept of gratitude as a way to surrender and realize that you are not in control? Practicing the presence of God means acknowledging the breath, the magic of being as well as creating and being inspired. It means acknowledging the breath, the magic of being as well as creating and being inspired. Getting in touch with the feeling, getting inspired, being inspired. More on perfect self-expression or the divine design. The student's goal is poise. Poise is power, for it gives God power a chance to rush through man, to will and do its good pleasure. Poised, he thinks clearly and makes right decisions quickly. Note. Damn. I hadn't considered poise as a power. Poise is calm. Poise is confidence. Poise is play. And I love the idea that poise allows for God power to flow through you. Wow, I love it. Further noted that this reminds me of the saying of ships coming in over a calm sea. Poise is the personification of faith, knowledge that God is supply. Poise is confidence in my spoken word. Poise is confidence in my subconscious mind. Poise is confidence that God is my supply. Give it a finger snap. Okay. Now back to the student's goal of poise. The student learns that in metaphysics, sin has a much broader meaning than in the old teaching. Whatever is not faith is sin. He finds that fear and worry are deadly sins. They are inverted faith, and through mental pictures bring to pass the thing he fears. His work is to drive out these enemies from the subconscious mind. Note. So in the study of metaphysics, sin is considered that anything other than faith, that is sin. And the work of the student of metaphysics is to eliminate that anything that is not of the faith, or whatever that is not of the faith. Further notes here, the student of metaphysics work is to drive out the enemies of fear and worry, as they are representative of deadly sins because it works in opposition to faith. It is considered a sin. I had not considered this before reading this sentence, and I also prefer Bashar's approach to see fear as a being, to thank the being for its purpose, and to send it love and light as you send it farewell from your life. This is a good approach to life that I will put into practice. Totally. Absolutely. Goes back to the gratitude. I like the idea of offering gratitude to fear as a being, because no other being can show your desire quite in the way that fear can. And I'm grateful to you, fear, for the lesson on the power of the subconscious mind. Thank you. Farewell. I send you love, send you light. Now further, in regards to whatever is not faith is sin, the student often delays his demonstration through a belief in incompletion. He should. In divine mind, there is only completion. In divine mind, there is only completion. Therefore, my demonstration is completed. My perfect work, my perfect home, my perfect health. Whatever he demands are perfect ideas registered in divine mind and must manifest under grace in a perfect way. When man asks, believing, he must receive, for God creates his own channels. Note: a belief in incompletion leads to a delay in bringing into reality what is asked for. Give thanks that you have already received on the invisible and make active preparation for receiving on the visible. I haven't thought about the essential aspect of belief as a factor in the state of incompletion. Why do I feel so tired though? Check in with your heart, my love, and the feeling, and tap into the honesty and truthfulness of who you are and what you desire. The conscious co-creates with the superconscious and the subconscious mind. More on whatever is not faith is sin. The Lord loveth a cheerful receiver as well as a cheerful giver. And this note, this links into the student's goal of poise. Being a cheerful receiver is a demonstration of poise, for sure. Being a cheerful giver is another demonstration of poise. On the chapter of perfect self-expression or the divine design, Florence Scovel Schinn goes on to note the law of reincarnation. Man goes through many births and deaths until he knows the truth which sets him free. However, birth and death are man-made laws, for the wages of sin is death. The Adamic fall in consciousness through the belief in two powers. The real man, spiritual man, is birthless and deathless. He never was born and has never died. As he was in the beginning, he is now and ever shall be. So through the truth, man is set free from the law of karma, sin, and death, and manifests the man made in his image and likeness. Man's freedom comes through fulfilling his destiny, bringing into manifestation the divine design of his life. Chapter Denials and Affirmations by Florence Scovel, Schinn. All the good that is to be made manifest in man's life is already an accomplished fact in divine mind, and is released through man's recognition or spoken word, so he must be careful to decree that only the divine idea be made manifest, for often he decrees through his quote unquote idle words failure or misfortune. If one desires a home, friend, position, or any other good thing, make the demand for the quote unquote divine selection. Example: Infinite Spirit, open the way for my right home, my right friend, my right position. I give thanks it now manifests under grace in a perfect way. As one grows in a financial consciousness, he should demand that the enormous sums of money which are his by divine right reach him under grace in perfect ways. Every man has within himself a gold nugget. It is his consciousness of gold or opulence which brings riches into his life. In making his demands, man begins at his journey's end, that is, he declares he has already received. Quote, before you call, I shall answer. Close quote. Continually affirming establishes the belief in the subconscious. One should not plead or supplicate, but give thanks repeatedly that he has received. Two attitudes of mind cause loss, depreciation, as in the case of the woman who did not appreciate her husband, or fear of loss, which makes a picture of loss in the subconscious. When a student is able to let go of his problem, cast his burden, he will have instantaneous manifestation. There is no time and space in divine mind. Therefore, the word reaches instantly its destination and does not return void. I am asked so often the difference between visualizing and visioning. Visualizing is a mental process governed by the reasoning or conscious mind. Visioning is a spiritual process governed by intuition or the superconscious mind. The student should train his mind to receive these flashes of inspiration and work out the divine picture through definite leads. If a student tries to force a demonstration through the reasoning mind, he brings it to a standstill. I will hasten it, saith the Lord. He should act only through intuition or definite leads. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently. Trust also in him, and he will bring it to pass. When a man can say, I desire only that which God desires for me, his false desires fade from the consciousness, and a new set of blueprints are given him by the master architect, the God within. God's plan for each man transcends the limitation of the reasoning mind and is always the square of life, containing health, wealth, love, and perfect self expression. Man should make an art of thinking. The master thinker is an artist and is careful to paint only the divine designs upon the canvas of his mind. And he paints these pictures with masterly strokes of power and decision, having perfect faith that there is no power to mar their perfection, and that they shall manifest in his life the ideal made real. All power is given man through right thinking, to being his heaven upon his earth, and this is the goal of the game of life. The simple rules are fearless faith, non resistance, and love. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. For prosperity, affirmation that Florence provides is God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace in perfect ways. For right conditions, every plan my Father in heaven has not planned shall be dissolved and dissipated, and the divine idea now comes to pass. Only that which is true of God is true of me, for I and the Father are one. Divine love now dissolves and dissipates every wrong condition in my mind, body, and affairs. Divine love is the most powerful chemical in the universe and dissolves everything which is not of itself. For faith, as I am one with God, I am one with my good. For God is both the giver and the gift. I cannot separate the giver from the gift. For health, divine love floods my consciousness with health, and every cell in my body is filled with light. For the eyesight, my eyes are God's eyes. I see with the eyes of spirit. I see clearly the open way. There are no obstacles on my pathway. I see clearly the perfect plan. For guidance, I am divinely sensitive to my intuitive leads and give instant obedience to thy will. For the hearing, my ears are God's ears. I hear with the ears of spirit. I am non-resistant and am willing to be led. I hear glad tidings of great joy. For right work, I have a perfect work in a perfect way. I give perfect service for perfect pay. I have a wonderful receipt of payment system that is aligned to my existence. I get paid to exist. I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. For freedom from all bondage, I cast this burden on the Christ within and I go free. The end. Thank you, Florence, Scovel, Schinn. I am grateful. We are grateful.